I was just letting everybody know that we are muting all of your lines. If you have questions, please post them to the chat. We are posting messages to the chat now, so you should actually see a little bitty orange blinking light pop up that you can actually select chat and see the message that's there. So just note that we're posting questions to chat right now. We'll give you the opportunity to ask questions towards the end of this session. So let me give you a little bit of a caveat on what's going on with this particular presentation. I'm not going to go through the process today of step-by-step instructions on how to access every tool that's out there. The goal of this particular presentation is to help you start thinking through how can I work remotely and what resources are available to me from a TCU perspective when I get into a remote situation. I'm going to talk a little bit about, also understanding the misconception that's out there right now that you have to connect to the VPN and use remote desktop to do everything that you need on campus. That's simply untrue. And that's a misnomer I'm going to talk about today. And every surface or every service that I hit today, we're going to talk a lot about whether or not you actually need to connect to the VPN and how you can access those resources remotely if they're available through the web or through other functional features that are out there. So just keep that in mind that today I'm not going to go step by step. You're more than welcome to ask questions towards the end of the session and I'll go over those with you. But today it's really just about demonstrating some really important key factors to thinking through that remote work process. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk just a little bit about the agenda today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus everything that I do today on the Keep Working website. If you have not heard about the Keep Working website, I will give you that address in just a little bit. It is the most important part of this entire presentation. If you listen to nothing else that I say today and you go reference this site, you're going to get 100% of what I cover off of that site today. So that is where almost everything that we need from a remote perspective is going to be stored. The other thing I'm going to talk about is really these next two items, going over a series of checklists and some best practices about working remotely. Now, in our current environment today, a lot of individuals didn't really get to prepare for that, working remotely. They didn't get to make a lot of good decisions before they got into this situation. And so there's some things that you might not be able to consider as you go through this, but we created a nice checklist and some great best practices for things that you need to know when you're working from a remote perspective. And I'll go over each one of those, show you where they are. They're great checklists to get you started and thinking through the overall process. And then towards the end, I'm really going to start going over how to access some of these different core services that are available. Things like email, things like your shares and box.com, which is a really great, fantastic tool. Things like Zoom, which you're using today. So you already kind of have a big connection with that particular tool. We're going to go over the two different types of phone systems that we have on campus. We're going to cover the VPN and remote desktop, again, kind of telling you when you need to use the VPN and remote desktop and when you don't. And then the other part of it is going to be MFA and two-factor authentication. And so MFA stands for multi-factor authentication and 2FA stands for two-factor authentication. There are two different types of authentication systems that we have on campus. I'm going to go over each one of those and when you would need them, when you would not, and some things to start thinking through as we go through that process. Again, everything that I'm going to cover today is really going to be under that Keep Working website. We are recording these sessions. And so as you go through that process, we're eventually going to anyone who actually registered for those presentations, we are sending links out to those towards the beginning of next week. So you can get a recording of this session if you found the information here to be valuable and something that you want to reference in the future. So know that that's definitely coming. All right, so let's jump straight into the first item on my list. And the first thing that's here is the Keep Working website. Again, that is keepworking.tcu.edu. And you're going to see a sister site to this that's going to come up that's called Keep Learning, and that's really focused for students. So that's going to be keeplearning.tcu.edu. But today, we're really focused on the faculty and staff side of working remotely. So I'm going to show off the site a little bit. I'm going to talk about some of the different things that you might need to focus your attention to if you go visit this site. So give me a second to pull that one up. Oh, I went ahead a little bit too far. Let me go in. I'm going to open up this website and let's take a little bit of time to review some of the content that's here. So first thing that I'm going to make note of is this breaking news button that you did not see on the previous picture that's there. There are a lot of things that IT is doing in the background to help make your life a lot easier as you're starting to work in a remote environment. And we're posting a big chunk of those things here on this breaking news link. Things like developing out the Keep Learning website, changes to your box.com quota, password expiration extensions that we're doing, where we added 90 days to everybody's current expired date. We're also talking about things like loaner pools that we're doing for faculty and for students, and then also some other opportunities for individuals if they're having to take their computers home. We did buy a Zoom site license for the campus, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, and then things like these webinars and other things. This list keeps going, but it's a really, really great resource if you are looking for some of the things that IT is doing as we're going through this process of transitioning to immediate work at home environments. So let me scroll through two other items that are fairly important through this overall process, and really part of it is staying informed, knowing where those resources are to get information about what's going on campus. One of them is the coronavirus website that we have that's out there. It's an FAQ site that we have on TCU's website. Great resource for information about everything related to the current situation. But your TCU email and TCU alert are two other great places that you need to make sure that you have access to and are always watching in case we're pushing out information or content to our constituents across campus. So one of the other items that I want to go over is this getting started section. And there are three items here that I think are really, really big items that we'll cover. One of them is the best practices, and the other one is a tech checklist. Those two we're going to cover pretty much in detail as we go through this presentation. But one of the really, really great articles that HR sent me was this tips for working from home. Really kind of helping you think through continuing a routine, picking a spot in your house or wherever you're at, making sure you close the door. There's some really, really great suggestions out here when you're starting to think through a work at home environment. And so take a look at that document. It's a really, really fantastic article that'll give you some perspective of working from home and some tips that you might not have always thought through as you're thinking through this overall process. We even added some items over here on the side where it says working from home tips. There's some teleconferencing etiquette, so some things that you could actually take advantage of today in this webinar today, as well as working from home effectively and improving your internet performance. Those are going to be some big items when you're thinking about working from home. Fantastic articles to take advantage of. They're in this menu bar right here off to the side. So as we scroll down this site, we're going to talk about each of the different core services that are available to you from off campus. Now, I talked about in this presentation that I'm not going through the step-by-step instructions on how to access each of the different tools that's out there. That's what this site is for. So if you want instructions on how to set up the Outlook client on your computer or how to install the VPN or remote desktop, those instructions are right here on this website. This is the instructions that I'm not going to go over today, but I'm going to talk about them, but know that they're out here on the Keep Working website. We've got things like Shares, Zoom, at-home apps that many of you didn't even know that you had access to, MFA versus 2FA, and then the two different phone systems that we have on campus. I'm going to cover all of those in our presentation today, and I'm going to talk about them at length. But just know that the stuff that I'm discussing in each of these presentations, the instructions on how to set them up, are all located on this website. So two other items that I wanted to make sure that I pointed out to you. One of them are some training resources, some really fantastic articles and documentation and videos on a lot of these different tools are already out there on our website or on the vendor's website that's putting this out here. So I totally recommend that you visit these training resources if you want to learn more about Box, the Okta MFA experience that we have on campus, RingCentral, Zoom. All of those are great, fantastic tool sets that are out there. They've got great training already online, a good opportunity to take advantage of some of this material that's already out there. And then last but not least is this document about internet relief. And I know one of the things that some of our students have struggled with is even some of our faculty and staff is that in this situation, some people weren't really prepared and didn't even have good internet connectivity at home. Well, the FCC has put out guidance to work with the major telecom giants and the ISPs that are out there, and many of them agreed to allow open hotspots for free to individuals, not to turn individuals off even if they haven't paid their bill during this whole situation. Spectrum and Comcast are even offering some opportunities for people to get free internet for the next 60 to 90 days, and they're waiving installation costs. So it's giving you an opportunity to stay connected. I would highly recommend, if you know an individual that's struggling with internet access or having trouble, even you yourself in this situation, that you review the internet relief options that are out here on the site. These are some great alternatives. They may give you some insight and some opportunity to solving some problems that you have in terms of working remotely and staying connected during that overall process. So I see that there's already been something posted to the chat. I'm going to pull that one up. It may have been Matt. Oh, great. Matt was already posting the Keep Working link to the website. If you need to use that, again, just driving questions back to the chat. Make sure that you're posting them there. Matt will help to answer questions, or he's going to stop me and say, hey, Josh, you need to definitely answer this question. So let's go back to the overall presentation. Again, keepworking.tcu.edu. If there's anything you take away from this presentation, it is all going to be found on that website. Share it with your peers, share it with the people around you. There's some great content and information out there that you'll really get advantage from. Okay, so let's go into some best practices for remote work. And I was on that Keep Working website earlier, and there was that link there for best practices. And I'm going to show you what that link actually looks like and what it brings up for you. And then we'll go back and talk about some of the highlighted practices that are out there. So when you pull this site up, it's a long document that talks about computer-based practices, data policies that we have out there, which is key to working from home, knowing when and where you can store particular types of data, and then some location-based practices, things that a lot of us don't think about, especially in light of our current situation where we didn't get a lot of choices of the environments that we're working in. This is something that I would definitely review and then try to apply it to your current situation. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's talk about the highlighted areas. These first two or three really focus on public and shared workspace environments. And when I mean like a public computer, I mean things like a hotel business center or a public library. We want you to avoid using computers like that. You are not in control of those machines. You don't know what people are doing or what they're actually looking at in terms of your access when you're on those machines. We want you to avoid using those types of machines unless you're interacting on with content that is not protected, that's not secure, and you're not really worried about what's occurring in those situations. I would also make sure that anytime that you're using a shared or a public space type machine, that any files that you download to that machine, that you are emptying the trash, putting them in the trash and then emptying the trash. Don't just throw them in the trash, but make sure that you empty the trash as well. This is a really important concept. Anytime that you are using a hotel business center or a public library, or even just someone else's shared computer that you log into, maybe your home machine is a machine that you share with your kids or with your spouse or a partner. In those situations, you've got to be very conscientious of making sure that whatever data you're leaving behind, that the people who have access to that data are not supposed to be able to get into it. And so if you're using a shared type device, be conscientious of that in that particular situation. The top one up here really kind of refers to that shared situation. Always have a dedicated profile on a shared computer. So don't have just one single profile that you and your partner or spouse or children use. It's always good to create multiple profiles so you have access to your profile and they have access to theirs, and it splits or creates some separation between you and those other individuals using those personal devices. Two other items from a location-based perspective. We always want you using the VPN if you're on a public or a shared network. Now, the VPN is used for two purposes. One, it's used to secure your current wireless network connection that you're using. It encrypts that connection. And in a shared or a public space environment like a Starbucks or your grocery store, those networks are shared. You don't know what people are doing in terms of what they're doing on that network, what they're trying to sniff traffic for. You don't know who controls those networks or what they're actually managing or looking at in terms of what you're putting out through the network. And so using the VPN helps to encrypt that data. Now, I'm going to talk about using the VPN to access TCU resources a little later, but the simple fact that it encrypts your connection from a protection standpoint here is one of the other reasons that you might want to use the VPN. The last but not least, also make sure that your workspace is secure for both not only conversations, but also for the physical safety of your equipment. We live in a bubble on campus at TCU, and I see students all the time that leave their laptops, go into the stacks in the library, 30, 40 minutes later, come back and nobody's done anything with your laptop. In the real world, that's not going to happen. You can't do that at a Starbucks. You can't do that at a public library. That information needs to be protected at all times. So make sure that the space that you're in is not only a space where people can't overhear personal or private conversations you're having with students or other faculty and staff, but that also that your equipment is in a safe space, not only where you store it at night, but also where you're leaving it when you're in public situations. And so let's talk a little bit about some computer-based situations. One, I always recommend that you're taking your TCU issued laptop and charger home every day. We've been asked to move to doing remote work if you can do remote work from off campus. Take your devices home all the time. It's very important to make sure that you have those devices with you when you need to. We may not know what the situation is. We're in a very fluid situation right now where things are changing day to day, and you don't want to be caught without the equipment that you need. So keep that with you at all times, especially in our current situation. Number two, get the VPN and remote desktop set up on your personal computer and plan to either remote into windows.tcu.edu or into a computer that you have access to on campus. I will talk more about that process and help you understand that. I think it is a great computer-based practice, but again, it is not required, and I'm going to dispel that misnomer. This is not something that you're required to do. It is just a way of accessing certain resources on campus. And you only really need to use the VPN and remote desktop for two reasons. One, if you have specialized software on the computer in your office that you don't have at home. And two, to access your common file share. Everything else like Box and your home file share and your email and Zoom and all of these other tools, you're going to have access to from off campus without having to go through the VPN and remote desktop. And I will make note of that as we go through each of our different core services a little bit later on in this presentation. Number three on this list, if you have a TCU owned laptop that you're taking home, make sure before you take it home that you have logged into it while you've been on campus, that you've plugged it into the wired network and logged into it for the first time. If you take a computer home for the very first time and you've never logged into it while you've been on campus, it has not cached your username and password onto the computer, so it has no way to let you log in. So don't pull an old computer out of the closet and just send it home with someone. They need to at least turn it on, plug it into the wired network, and make sure that they've logged into it for the first time before they attempt to take it home. And then last but not least, I need you to make sure that you're also aware of our data storage policies. And I'm going to pull this particular document up. The data storage policies that we have out there are extremely important. They're helping you to understand the difference between personal, public, private, and confidential data and where you can store that type of information. Whether you can put it on your personal owned computer, whether you can put it on a TCU machine, whether or not you can store it in Box versus Google Docs or other places. This is a fantastic document and matrix to make sure you understand. And if you want to know more about the difference between how these different types of data sets are defined, there's a link up at the top that says TCU Data Classification Policy. If you scroll down, it helps to define the difference between personal data, public data, private data, and confidential data. But really, once you understand those three types of data, make sure you understand where you can store that data. That's extremely important when you're working at home in these situations, because that's a critical time when a lot of people don't understand where they can store their data, and they put the university at risk in many, many situations because they're not being conscientious of where they're storing and where they're managing that particular data. All right, so I'm going to check the chat. Let's see what's out there. Matt, great. Thank you for putting out some of this great information via some links that are out there. No new questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section in our presentation. All right, so let's talk about that ever important checklist. And I'm going to cover this one really fast. I'm going to go back to our Keep Working website, and right in the middle, I've got this tech checklist. So this tech checklist is something you can go through really fast. It's got some great documentation on how to check to make sure your computer is up to date, how to go through and check the name of your computer that you might be remoting into from off campus, some Zoom testing, speed tests, all of that stuff is out here that you can get access to. Great resources. I would go through this checklist just to make sure that you feel prepared and that you are ready to work from a remote perspective off campus. So let me go back to a couple of the highlighted areas that are back here. One, do the internet speed test. If you are worried about the internet speed that you have at home, I highly recommend you run that internet speed test. It's just something that actually does a scan where it pushes files up and downloads some files to get a real good idea of what your internet speed is. And that's what we're running into a lot of problems with as we're having people work from home. They're starting to use more and more bandwidth at home using things like Zoom and others, and they're sharing that with multiple people in a home environment. So they might be streaming Netflix and might be doing a Zoom session, and someone else is watching videos on their computer, different and it's straining their network connection. So you got to be conscientious of what kind of speed you have at home, and making sure at the same time that you're not utilizing a lot of those other resources when it's important for you to make a Zoom call or for you to actually interact with something on the internet for a particular class or for a work-related situation. So be conscientious of that. I also recommend that you run the Zoom test. If y'all are on this Zoom presentation today, you've pretty much already done that, so you're good to go. But I highly recommend that you share that out to others, especially when you're using other machines or when others are trying to connect to Zoom. There's a great Zoom test out there. Another thing to check is the minimum requirements that you have on your machine. Is the personal device that you're using at home really hitting the minimum requirements that we have for TCU technology on campus? Check it out. Make sure that those devices are ready to go before you start using them either in a classroom situation or a work-related situation. I keep honing on this one, and this one was one we had in the last menu item for kind of best practices. Make sure that your device is up to date and that you've got the computer name of your device available to you. Those instructions are out there on this checklist. Really great resources that you can use from your personal device or from your TCU owned device. Again, a second reminder of signing into your computer before you take it off campus to make sure that those credentials are cached. We cannot help you at the help desk if you have not done that. Your machine has to log in the first time from on campus. There's nothing we can do from the help desk perspective to help solve that problem for you if you're in that situation. Two final items. One, make sure that you have set up Okta MFA and that you have checked your TCU two-factor authentication contact information. And I'm going to go into some detail about when you need to be using Okta MFA and then how you can update that MyTCU information. Be aware of that. We're going to cover that in a section a little later on. And then last but not least, there's a lot of people who may need to update their voicemail and their email out of office information. If you're going to be delayed in getting back to individuals, or you want them to reach out to you using a different method, make sure that you've updated that information before you're off campus, because it gives you an opportunity then to at least communicate back to individuals that are reaching out to you. Okay, so I've got a chat that's in here right now. Let's see if there's any new questions. Nope, great, good content that Matt's putting back out there. If you do have questions, again, driving you to chat to utilize the questionnaires that are there. I'm going to go ahead and move forward since we don't have any new questions, and I'm going to go straight into core services that you have on campus. So I'm going to start with email. I think there's a lot of people that have no idea that you could access your TCU email from off campus, and that you can access your TCU email from off campus without even having to open up Outlook or set it up on your mobile device. You can access TCU email by visiting mail.tcu.edu. Now, the students can visit stumail.tcu.edu, and they can access email through a web browser as well. So keep in mind that you have the opportunity to access your email from anywhere in the world using a simple web browser. And I'm just going to log into it just to demonstrate how easy it is to get access to your email. The login page does look a little bit different than we normally have, but again, it's mail.tcu.edu. Log in with my username and password, and boom, I'm in a web version of my email. All my folders are in here, all my hundreds and hundreds of folders. I've got access to my calendar. I've got access to the people and contacts that are out there. I can go straight into using everything in the web version that I have access to in Outlook. Now, it's not quite as robust as using Outlook on campus, but it does give you some immediate quick way to get access to some of the different technology and communication tools that are out there. So remember, all you have to have is a simple web browser. And anytime that you ever report an issue in the future with Outlook, remember, if Outlook's down, you can still go straight to your web browser to continue to work without even losing a step while you're waiting on the support team to work with you to try to solve any particular problem that you might have. The two other options to access your email are either one, by downloading and installing Outlook on your personal device or your TCU-owned device. Now keep in mind, I don't know how many of you know, but you can download Office for free as a TCU employee or as a TCU student by visiting office.tcu.edu. That's one of the great benefits of being a TCU employee. You can download that on your personal devices. You get Word, PowerPoint, Access, Excel, as well as Outlook. And utilizing those tools gives you the opportunity to get in and install Outlook so you could check your email from off campus. The instructions on how to access and set up Outlook are back on the Keep Working website, just like they are on the mobile phone. So on your mobile phone, you could either install the Outlook app on your phone, or you could use the mail client that's already been installed or set up on the device and configure it to allow you to access email from off campus. But again, you do not need to use the VPN or remote desktop to access your email. You can do all of that from a personal device or from your TCU owned device without ever connecting to the VPN or without connecting to remote desktop. Those instructions are out there on the Keep Working website. I'm going to check chat again. Matt posting some great information out there for y'all to be able to use. So I'm going to jump straight from TCU email right into Okta MFA versus MyTCU 2FA. So we have two systems out here that allow verification of a particular user as they're logging in from off campus. And so when we talk about MFA, multi-factor authentication, or 2FA for two-factor authentication, these are basically solutions that allow us to identify or verify your identity and keep hackers from getting into your different accounts. And so think about it this way. This allows us to identify something that you know, like your username and your password, plus something that you have, like your mobile device with you that only you have, that gives you a piece of information to allow you to log in. That's how we identify who you are. It's a two-step process. And we're starting to apply Okta MFA out to every service we have across campus, but we're only partially way through that process. That's why we have two systems today. MyTCU 2FA only protects secure resources inside of MyTCU. So when you're on campus and you log into MyTCU, you never get posed for MyTCU 2FA. But when you're off campus, you do. And that's only when you connect to a secure resource like Faculty Center or your paycheck or your salary letter or the Employee Center. When you log into MyTCU and you click on one of those resources, it's going to pop up and pose you for MyTCU 2FA. If you have gotten a new phone or you have gone in and updated your personal address recently, make sure that you've gone in and updated the information from MyTCU 2FA. You want to be able to get in to submit your grades or look at your HR information in Employee Center. You do that by going to MyTCU, going to the Employee Center, then clicking on personal information and then contact details and update all of that information there. Now remember, if you're off campus, in order to get to Employee Center, you have to have MyTCU 2FA working. So if for some reason you've changed your number and you can't get past that, you have to contact HR in order to get that information updated. Okay, let me talk a little bit about Okta MFA. So Okta MFA is eventually going to replace MyTCU 2FA, and we've only rolled Okta MFA out to 3 services. One of them is TCU Online. So if you're off campus and you're using TCU Online as a faculty member, you're going to definitely get hit with Okta MFA. Number 2 is using the VPN. We've talked about using the VPN before. Again, if you're thinking about or need to use the VPN, make sure that you're enrolled in Okta MFA. And the last one is another tool called Maxient. Now we're going to continue to roll MFA, our Okta MFA out to all of these different tools across campus, but we're only partially on the way through. But let me talk a little bit about the tool. I'm going to pull up the website for enrolling in Okta MFA. If you want to enroll now, it's no big deal. If you happen to enroll early before we launch it out to a service that you use, great, more power to you. You've already got it done and you don't have to worry about anything. But Okta MFA is going to allow you to authenticate 3 different ways. These first 2 are related to installing an app on your phone, and it allows you to use a rolling code, which is fantastic because if you're traveling around the world and don't have internet access, all you have to do is pull out your phone. You don't have to have internet access or cell service, and you open up this app, and it gives you a code that changes every 30 seconds that you can enter. If you're using Okta, you could also use that same app for push notifications. So what's great is that anytime, and I'll demonstrate this in a little bit, anytime I'm using Okta MFA via push, I've got my Apple Watch on. And so it vibrates on my wrist as soon as I have to do a verification. I twist my arm, press a button, and boom, I'm on. It's really, really great, super easy and very flexible to get in. And then the last part of Okta MFA is going to be SMS. So you can use these 3 options. The first 2 are going to be related to installing an app on your phone, and the last one is SMS. I highly recommend, if you've already enrolled in Okta MFA and you didn't enroll in all of these options, to go back and work with the help desk to get that done. And I can even show you where you can go do that. You can click right here on modify your Okta MFA settings, and there's instructions on how to go look and see whether or not you've enrolled, or you can reset any of your current factors, but you got to be able to get into it first with one of your current existing factors. If you've never enrolled in Okta MFA, you can click the Begin Enrollment button. If you scroll down this page, there's step-by-step instructions on exactly how to enroll with videos about what to do in each section. It is super easy, should not take you more than about 5 minutes to complete. It's a great functional tool that gives you access to be able to authenticate both for the VPN, for TCU Online, and for Maxient. Those three services are what are currently protected by Okta MFA. And remember, my TCU 2FA is only in my TCU. All the other services that we have out there, we're going to be rolling out soon, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. Okay, I'm going to go back over here to the slide deck again. I'm going to pull up chat. Seeing no questions, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so another core service is Zoom. If you are using Zoom today, if you're on this presentation today, you're already using Zoom. Zoom is a fantastic video conferencing tool, and you can set up your own sessions. You can send out stuff to your colleagues or to your students. We are doing a webinar series this week on Zoom, and we've been doing them last week and this week. We've had hundreds and hundreds of individuals go through these webinar series. This is an absolutely fantastic tool, and what's great is that as this situation started to unfold in our current situation, IT bought a site license for the Zoom Pro services that are out there. We used to just have Zoom Basic for individuals, and then people would buy a Pro license if they wanted the more enhanced features, but we have given the entire Zoom Pro feature set out to all of our students, our faculty, and all of our staff. Really, really a great way of connecting and accessing some of these really fantastic resources that are out there. I highly recommend that you attend our webinar training series that's going on right now. Really, really a great tool to help you learn more about how Zoom will work. It's going to allow you to collaborate with your coworkers and your peers and your students. Imagine doing this exact screen sharing type solution out with someone else that you're working with on a regular basis and being able to share your video and talk without having to get on a phone call. Great resources also online. If you visit it.tcu.edu/Zoom, that will take you to a web page that has a ton of information with all these different videos and uploaded documents on how to use a breakout room or Zoom polling or do a virtual background. Like if you look at my background, it shows the TCU Commons right now instead of where I'm currently at. You can use a virtual desktop or a background. It's really fantastic. You can also go in and create meetings, join meetings. All of those instructions are here, as well as a great overview of what Zoom video conferencing is all about. So I highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time visiting our IT website, not only to just review the content here, but to sign up for the webinar series if you want to learn more about Zoom. We've got several more planned throughout the rest of this week. All right, let's go back. Let's skip finishing up Zoom here, and let's go straight into the VPN and RDP. And actually, I'm going to skip these two slides, and I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to talk about shares, and then I'm going to come back and talk about remote desktops. So you have three different types of shares that are out there now. You have your home file, you have your common file, and you have box.com. So your home file is also referred to as your M drive, and that's your local share that you have on your machine that's just for you. There are two ways to access your home file. One that's really easy, and one that you use the VPN and remote desktop to get access to. So again, I was telling you, I'm going to tell you when you need to use those services or when you need to use the VPN or remote desktop to access those services. This is one where you can use that, but I'll give you an alternative. And home file, if you just want to access your home file, you can visit a site called fsftp.tcu.edu. And I will tell you, the login page on this is not real pretty, and this interface is just a little bit clunky, but it does work. And so I'm going to log in. It's going to give you access to all of the files in your home file. So I can upload files, create new folders. It's not as nice as Box is. Box is a really, really nice interface, but it does give you the ability to go in, and I'm just going to double click on this particular report, open it up. It's going to download that file, and boom, I'm going to open it up, and there it is. I've got a file off my home file drive in like 10 seconds. Great way to access some resources that are out there. Again, that is fsftp.tcu.edu. You do not need the VPN or remote desktop to access your home file share. You can upload documents, download documents, and work on documents through this interface. Really a great way of accessing some of those resources quickly. Now, common file is your group file share, like your departmental share or other shares where you have multiple people who have access to that common file share. The only way you can access those is through the VPN and remote desktop. And oh, I clicked too far. Let me go back. So the only way that you can access those is through the VPN and remote desktop. I will talk about that. I'm going to come back and hit that slide in just a second. And the last item on here is Box.com. I love Box.com. Box.com is a cloud-based file sharing solution that's out there that allows you to access your files either through the web, through your phone on a mobile app, or through an app that's installed on your computer called Box Drive. So I can access my files for Box 3 different ways, and I do not need the VPN or remote desktop to access that tool. It's a really, really fantastic tool. We are also running a webinar series this week about Box.com, and it's been a fantastic series. We actually just posted out the entire webinar out on our Box site. So if you go to it.tcu.edu/Box, there is tons of video training information out here, as well as our entire hour-long webinar series that's already out there. But you can also attend those webinar sessions live and ask questions to individuals just like you're doing here. So this is a great resource for individuals. We've got tons of information about how to use Box Drive, how to log into Box, how to share and collaborate with others. And the really, really nice tool about the really nice feature about Box is that I can collaborate with other people outside of my organization. That's where common file and home file are limited because you can only collaborate with people here at TCU when you're using our file sharing solution. But with Box, you can share that out with external individuals and you can collaborate in files on the web all simultaneously. Highly recommend that you attend that webinar training series or go watch the video on our website. But again, you can access Box.com and all of the resources that we have there by going to it.tcu.edu/Box. Now, I will tell you, here's what Box does for me. That's really, really fantastic. One of those things is the simple fact that if you walked into my office and you pushed my computer on the floor and went, haha, Josh, you cannot continue to work, I would pull out my mobile device right here that has the app installed on it, and I would have access to every file that I need access to. Even this presentation today that I pulled up through Box Drive, and it's stored in the cloud. I have access to it from any computer that I go to do my presentation. I do not have to store the files locally on my computer. Really a great, fantastic solution that you need to take advantage of. So I said I was going to talk about the VPN and remote desktop, and let me go back and let's talk a little bit about this solution. So there are 3 parts to the VPN, and one of them I'm going to tell you, you have to enroll in Okta MFA in order to use the VPN. So if you are planning on remoting into your computer in your office and you want to use the VPN and remote desktop, you have to enroll first. So go back to that Okta MFA website and complete the enrollment. If you're already done, you only have to do that once. There's no problem with that. So you are good to go if you've already completed that step. So now let me walk you through the process on how the VPN works and do a little bit of a network training for you. One, you're going to download and install a piece of software. The instructions are on the Keep Working website. So make sure to hit the Keep Working website if you want information about how to download and install the F5 VPN. So once you install the F5 VPN, it logs you in, and then you have to use Okta MFA to verify your identity, something that you have with you, just like your username and password is something you have your phone with you or SMS with you, so you can at least identify or validate your identity. Once you've identified it and gotten into the system, then you use remote desktop to connect to a computer on campus. Now you can do 2 types of machines, either the machine in your office if you happen to have a machine available, or a big server called windows.tcu.edu that allows multiple people to connect to that resource so you have access to a computer on campus. So remember, either you can connect to your computer in your office or you can connect to windows.tcu.edu. And so let me talk just a little bit about how networking works, at least just to give you a quick diagram about this process. So one, imagine yourself out here in the internet. This is where you are with your laptop or your computer today. And this is the TCU campus right here, all these little computers that are back over here. There's a server right here, printers, and the computers that are on campus. So when you're on the internet, if you're trying to connect to the campus, imagine the fact that the campus is surrounded by a big brick wall, also called a firewall. And that could be a virtual software solution or physical unit that we have on campus that helps to protect the campus and keep individuals who don't have authenticated access to accessing these computers on campus. It's a way of protecting our campus. So remember, that's our perimeter firewall. So if you're trying to connect to the internet, you're a hacker and you're trying to see if TCU left some ports open, or you're trying to access computers on campus, they hit this firewall and it rejects their traffic, that unauthorized traffic, and it sends them away and blocks their access from getting access to the tools. You see that big fire piece right there, kind of indicating that firewall interaction with the individuals that have rejected access. But in your case, you are using the VPN to encrypt your traffic and say, I am a valid user that should be able to have access to the solution. And it's like a key. It's like getting you past this firewall using your keys or a door to get into the on-campus network. So imagine you're here with your laptop, you use the VPN, and that VPN is this blue line that's your key past this firewall and then bringing you to the on-campus network. Now, once you're on the on-campus network, then you have to use remote desktop to connect either to a computer in your office or to connect to windows.tcu.edu, which is that big server where a lot of different people can connect to that solution. So again, you're the user, you use the VPN to get past our firewall and get you on campus. Then you either use remote desktop to connect to the computer in your office or to windows.tcu.edu. So I'm going to do a little demo for you and walk you through this process. So again, you open the F5 VPN, you validate your identity using Okta MFA, and then you use remote desktop. So I'm going to end my PowerPoint presentation real quick, and I'm going to minimize this. So again, the instructions out here on how to do all of this are on the Keep Working website. But you notice I'm on a Mac. Same thing applies to a PC, but you're going to use two applications, one called the F5 Big IP Edge client and the remote desktop application that's out there. So I'm going to open up the F5 client. It's the first step. I'm going to hit connect, and I'm going to log in with my credentials. When I get in, it's going to immediately ask me, do I want to use a push notification or do I want to use SMS to validate my identity via Okta MFA? I'm going to click one because remember, I told you I was going to use my watch. I just got a notification on my watch here. So I'm going to hit yes, it's me. I just got in and boom, now I have used my username and password, something I know, plus my watch, which is something I have with me to validate my identity. So now I am connected to the F5 VPN. Now I'm going to pull up remote desktop, which I can install from the App Store. It's already pre-installed on Windows machines, but on a Mac, it's going to ask me to download that from the App Store. And I have all these other computers set up. So I have windows.tcu.edu, as well as the computer in my office. So I'm going to go to the computer in my office. I'm going to press continue, and I'm going to log in with my credentials. Oops, I think I put my credentials in correctly. When I do that, I hit OK, and now I'm in the computer in my office. And what's great is that I can click on the little folder down in the bottom corner and have access to all of my shares, my home file drive, my common file drive, all of these different solutions that are already out there. I have access to all of those. Now, again, remember, I could get to my home file using the web version, but from common file, this is the only place I can access those. The other reason that you would need to use the VPN or remote desktop is to access specialized software or solutions that you have access to on your computer in your office. So keep in mind, it's very easy to get access to this. You can go through this process. It takes some time to get it configured and working correctly, but you saw me connected to my machine in less than 30 seconds. It is not a challenging process. All right, so one of the other things I'm going to do is show you how you can connect to windows.tcu.edu. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to exit to full screen. I'm going to get out of remote desktop. I'm going to open it back up. Once I open it back up, I can actually connect to windows.tcu.edu. And oh, I forgot, I didn't get this one configured right. I was doing some testing. You can actually configure this using the information that's out on our website. But again, it's just like connecting to one machine that multiple individuals can connect to, whereas the machine in my office, only one person can connect to that device at any given time. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to end my connection to the VPN because when I'm connected via Zoom out to all of y'all, and I'm using the VPN, I could slow down my connection. And I want to get us back to being able to go through this presentation. So I see a couple of questions out there in chat. Matt's basically been posting information about, oh, great, information about box training workshops, how to access the different shares that are out there. So I just went through a whole lot with those different pieces, but doesn't look like there's any new questions. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on, go back into this presentation again, and let's start from this current slide. Okay, so again, you connect to the F5 VPN, validate your identity via Okta MFA, and then you use remote desktop to connect to either the machine in your office or windows.tcu.edu. So you can also tell everybody today that you're a little bit of a network engineer because you learned a lot about how the network traffic on campus works and how you can access some of these different resources that are available to you. All right, we talked about datas and shares that are already out there. Let's go into the phone system on campus. All right, so we're getting close to the end. We're going to go through one or two more services. So we have two different phone systems on campus, just like we're rolling out Okta MFA to replace MyTCU 2FA. We have two systems on campus, one called RingCentral and one that's a legacy system called Avaya. RingCentral covers about 65% of campus today. And what was so sad was that on Monday, this coming Monday, we were supposed to roll out another 600 phones. But because of the current situation we're in, we canceled that. We would have been much closer to finishing our overall goal if we had been able to hit that on Monday. But RingCentral is an absolutely fantastic tool. It is built for work at home environments that we're in today, where we are trying to answer our phones like someone calling into our office. I can answer my phone from my cell phone, from my computer, lots of different ways that you can access the tool. And so I'm actually going to show you one of the things that's really, really unique about RingCentral. If you use RingCentral, you can answer your phone from multiple devices. I can use the desk phone in my office. I can install a software application called the RC Phone app onto my Mac on my computer and answer phone calls through my computer, or I can install an app on my phone, and when someone calls my office phone, it's going to ring my cell phone and they'll have no idea that I was not in the office. So just like with Box, where you have an app for the phone or an app for the computer or through the web, you also have three different ways that RingCentral allows you to answer your phone calls. So that's what's really great about RingCentral, where 65% of the campus is really getting the opportunity to utilize this at a high capacity now, because you can go in and download the app to your phone and immediately start answering or making calls from your cell phone, which is really, really fantastic. So one of the things I'll talk about, if you have a RingCentral phone today, you'll know it because it'll have RingCentral written on the phone, and you will have gone through a recent process within about the past 6 to 8 months, some training and some onboarding and others. But if you don't know anything about RingCentral, I highly recommend that you visit ringcentral.tcu.edu. And this is a fantastic site where we pull together all of the different resources about how to use the tool. Things like what is RingCentral, even a really fantastic little guide that we put out about how to use RingCentral that we set up for every phone that we're putting out there that you can use while you're with your desk phone in your office or using some of the soft phone features that are on the computer or on your phone. A really, really great icebreaker video that walks you through all of the different things that RingCentral can do. Because what's cool about RingCentral is that not only is it just an individual phone line now, but it's also a fax line and a texting line. So you basically combine some extra points of contact into your cell phone that you are into your office phone that you never had before once RingCentral's rolled out to your particular phone. Here's where you can download the software, and I'm going to make a very big point. Look for the little phone icon called RingCentral Phone. Do not download the app called RingCentral app. You currently don't have access to that. It's currently not supported yet. Make sure to download the RingCentral Phone app with the phone icon. If you'll notice down here, I have both of them. I have the RingCentral app and the RingCentral Phone app. This is the app that you want. And I'll show you. I'll actually log into this app on my computer, and this is the soft phone. It's very similar to what I have on the phone in my office, or on the app on my phone. And I'm going to cancel out of this. I've actually got it set up on my computer in my office as well. But I can see all of my missed calls. I can see all of my made calls, which is really awesome. I can see text messages and voicemail messages that have been sent to me. I can make an outbound call. I can even go in, I can enter the phone number I want to call. I can use a couple of different solutions to identify whether or not I want it to show as blocked or I want it to show as another number. Really great functionality that's already out here built into the softphone app right on the computer. And imagine you have this same functionality on your cell phone. So if you open up the RingCentral phone app and you start to make an outbound call, people look, they'll actually see your 817 phone number, 817-257 phone number, and it's not going to be your cell phone number. So it's a great way of being able to communicate with others without giving away your cell phone. Really great functionality. I can also tell when people are on the phone and currently available. It's a really fantastic tool for working remotely, just like in the situation that we're in. Last but not least, there are two items on here. One thing that's great about RingCentral is that we are giving you the opportunity to manage and set up and configure your device. Unlike the old system where you have to contact us for everything, with RingCentral, you have the ability to manage that through an app or through a web browser called or web page called rc.tcu.edu. And then there's tons of videos about how to use your phone and the RingCentral self-service portal. All of that stuff is out here. Even learning to use the RingCentral phone app. There's a whole 30-minute video about how to utilize that tool. So some really great functionality that's out here for RingCentral, which is why I'm really excited about using the RingCentral app in our current situation and glad that we have it out to at least 65% of the campus. If you're on the old Avaya legacy system, there are two things that you can consider when you're working from home. One of them is set up voicemail to email. And what's great is that anytime anyone leaves you a voicemail on your office phone, it's going to send you an email with a copy of that message that was left as a WAV file. So you can be anywhere in the world and listen to that message and get back to that person without having to be in your office. You can set this up by putting in a request with the help desk and we'll process that for you. We just need to know what email address to send it to and what your phone number is in that case. And then last but not least, request to have your office phone forwarded to your cell phone or your home phone. That would ensure that calls that are going to your office phone are still being answered and that you have access to them. Both of these options are still some great work from home functional pieces, even with our old system that you have available to you. But in both cases, you have to put in a request with the help desk in order to grant you access to that particular solution. So remember, RingCentral, you have control of managing some of that. A lot of that's out there on the ringcentral.tcu.edu website. But with the Avaya system, you've got to put in a request to both of those for both of those two options with the help desk in order to take or get access to that particular solution. Okay, so we already talked a little bit about RingCentral here. So now we're down towards the very end, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. So right off the bat, one of the best things that I will tell you to do is keep pointing people to the keepworking.tcu.edu website. This is extremely important. This is a fantastic website with all of these resources, way more than what I even covered out here on the web, and giving you access to not only instructions, but documentation and training that you can use when you work through this overall process. Share this with your peers, share this with your coworkers, and even share the Keep Learning website that's out there as well that we just launched out to campus. But just note as well that even though we're not working on campus, the help desk is still available to you. We've gone completely remote. Our call center is available remotely. Our technicians can actually take calls from their homes or from remote locations. And you can still reach out to the IT support help desk by phone at 817-257-HELP. That's also 4357. Via chat at it.tcu.edu, and you can just click on the little chat icon down at the bottom of every page. Or if the help desk is closed and you still want to put in a request with the help desk, use our self-service option. You can visit My TCU and click on the technology icon, or when you visit our website, you can click on this little self-help button right here in the top corner of our website. That will give you instructions on how to create a self-service ticket, and we will process those when the help desk is open in the future. So I'm going to go back and look at chat. Let's see if any new questions have been posted. Nope, everybody's been quiet. Matt's posting some posting out some great links out there. We are to the end of this particular presentation. We have a couple of minutes left. Matt and I will still be on for the next 4 or 5 minutes to help answer some questions for you. And there's not very many of you on, so this is a perfect opportunity to ask. what I'm gonna do is give Matt the opportunity to see if there's anything that I missed, or see if there's any individual chats that he might be having. So Matt, is anyone hit you up for any questions that we need to talk about?
They have not, Joshua. The only thing that I think we might mention to folks is that I know that y'all are still spinning up the keeplearning.tcu site in case they wanted to download any software that you might want to use at home. Did you want to talk about that really quickly?
Sure, that's a great point. If you visit keeplearning.tcu.edu, and I'll actually pull the site up, it.tcu.edu/keeplearning, or you can go to keeplearning.tcu.edu. What's great about this site is it's really focused on student work, but helping them to understand what's available to them. But down at the bottom, the thing that Matt is in reference to is trying to get students access to lab-based software like Autodesk, ChemDraw, Minitab, SPSS. We provided instructions out here on the lab software information site about how individuals can go through that process. So just sharing with you different ways that you can interact with some of your students. We don't have everything up yet. So like ArcGIS, Lectra, MatTab, and Stata, we're still working on some different functional pieces out there that we're going to create instructions for as soon as it's readily available to your students. But we are trying as hard as we can to get functional off-campus access for students to some of these lab resources. Great call, Matt. That was a really good one. And so Matt just posted that one out there on the chat. If you want to unmute your line, you're more than welcome to do that if you have a question, or post your question to chat. I'm going to shut up for a second. I'm going to be quiet. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to unmute your line for or post to chat?